What time is it? It's Tuesday night. It's 10 p.m. and it's the C3 podcast. And it's your boy, Tony, the professor, the professor, aka Tony Dunn. We are rolling Flintstone style, taking it back old school style. No music, no bells, no frills, no whistles, just two Panther fans batting around what we love the most, and that is Panther football. And I'm doing it here with one of my oldest friends, my best brother, Joey Riolano. Good to see you again.
Tony, it is a pure pleasure to be on with you. It's just the two of us tonight. Our cohort, partner in crime, the third member of our trio here, is in, did he say Chicago?
I don't know. I don't even know where he's at. He's just at a business dinner last I heard. I didn't even.
That's right, just at a business dinner somewhere. Anyway, he's not able to be here, and we miss him, but we wish him well at his business dinner, and the show must go on, as they say. We've got lots of stuff to cover. It's sort of a quiet time right now with OTAs ending and training camp just around the corner. But that's good because we've got plenty of work to keep us busy with what we have coming up.
That's the truth. And, just to let everybody know is that the professor is not at home again, on the road. I'm in enemy territory in Georgia, but it's North Georgia. It's the mountains, and it's this little town called Helen. So it's this German-styled town that they made as a kind of vacation tourist attraction. I found out, Joey, only 1,400 people live in this town.
Wow.
That's the residents, but it's relatively, it's not small, as in there's a lot of businesses, there's a lot of things, but there's these like timeshare resorts and just, golf course around the corner, mountain trails and hiking. And, my wife's family has been coming here since the early 80s. And Joey, it has become a favorite trip of mine and my kids because right now we have locked down 5 condominiums, 5 big condos. There were some people have already started to leave because not everybody can stay the full time. 24 people, Joey, 12 kids of 12 kids of the ages 8 and younger.
Oh my God.
Yeah, it's crazy time. The kids love it. They spend all day at the pool. Today we went canoeing and stuff. So it's been a blast. Cool. It's nice to spend time with the family. And this is not the first time the C3 podcast has been done from this location offsite, but that's why we're rolling like we are. You can check out the pod. You can tweet the show using the hashtag C3. And we're just going to break down the typical stuff. And like Joey said, even though it's a quiet time, we've got plenty to talk about. So we'll jump into the show. This week's episode is 16.19. Minicamp is a wrap. What now? And we're anticipating training camp coming, Joey, and I think they just put out the training camp schedule.
They did, in fact.
I'm not mistaken.
You're absolutely right. They did. They have released it. So I know people are making plans, us included, on attending at some point during the dates they provided, and we're looking forward to it.
I think I saw the date is everything kicks off July 28th with the very first practice, and they have like this kind of Lowe's sponsored practice that a lot of people, particularly people that are members of the C3 family, went to last year. That kind of kickoff Lowe's party, and that's in Spartanburg, July 28th. And then I think Fan Fest was something like August 4th.
Right.
Now both of these events are particularly fun events for fans. In fact, they may be some of the most fun events. If you are a Panthers fan, most of the time what you're doing is you're going to a game, you're celebrating the team. You're paying a lot of money to have fun. Certainly have fun, but it's a lot of work. It's a lot of money. And I feel like I often find it kind of stressful at times. Mm-hmm. Is that coordinating, meeting up with people, traveling, paying bazillions of dollars for tickets. It'll be like 100,000 degrees. But training camp has this kind of fun atmosphere where there's this component, and FanFest particularly, where it is where they celebrate the fan.
Right.
You know,
Right.
and of course they practice and things like that, and you get to see the guys up close. But this is the best time to get autographs. Best time to get the kind of up close. You're never going to get an autograph at a game.
No.
Like there's like 4 people that maybe get an autograph
Right.
at a game.
And it's really, I think the best way to describe it is if you make the trip to training camp, it's worth it because it's a much more intimate setting. It
Yes.
really is. Several, when you go to a game, there's all types of layers, all sorts of layers that are between you and the players. Well, at training camp, most of those layers are removed. And it is very intimate. You get to be right up on the field watching the players practice. You can shout things out to them, and if they hear you and they want to acknowledge you, they do. We got acknowledged our first year there by Sticky Wicky.
That's right. That's right.
And it's a really good time. You really do feel like you're participating in something when you're there. I recommend to everyone that's able to go, even for just a day, go check it out. It'll put things in a totally different perspective from you if you've only been and seen football games. Seeing them practice, seeing the camaraderie, the joking that goes on. It's really good. It really does make you appreciate the team and the players that much more.
Okay, so I got the dates right here. Starts off on a Thursday, July 28th, 6:30 to 8:30, Gibbs Stadium. That's in Spartanburg. Go ahead, folks, and just know this. It's going to be hot. Like Spartanburg is one of the hottest places on earth. The only place that, to me, can be considered hotter is right down the street. And this is odd. You wouldn't just think that South Carolina is this hottest spot, but that corner, that kind of northwest corner of South Carolina, I don't know if just air dies there and the humidity just wins the day, but Columbia is just where the Gamecocks play is just awful, right? I mean, that may be the hottest, but that's like 25 minutes away, I feel like.
No, it's a little further than that. But with Columbia, it's all the concrete and asphalt and all that there. That's why it's so hot in Columbia. But the proximity to the sun in Spartanburg must be significantly closer than anywhere else in the state of South Carolina because it is hot.
It is awful.
You think you know heat wherever you're at. You spend a couple of afternoons in Spartanburg and you will have a different appreciation, I promise you.
So a couple of tips for that. Well, let me see. It starts off on a Thursday. That's going to be fun, 6:30 to 8:30 because things are starting to cool off. The next day, Friday, they have 4 consecutive practices. So this is a great weekend to go. Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday, 3:10 to 5:10 on Friday. People will be coming after work on Fridays there. That'll be crowded. Saturday and Sunday mornings, 9:25 to 11:30. So what I would do is that if you're planning a trip, and let's go ahead and give a shout out to to the girl gang. We call them the C3 girl gang, but the girl gang is this group of passionate female Panther fans that probably know more football. Well, I'm going to go ahead and say this. Most of them know more football than I do, right? And when I say passionate, that is being very conservative of a description of how much these girls like the Carolina Panthers. But they have been organizing a trip. They're getting special T-shirts made up. We're just so happy to see this type of camaraderie that we reached out to them and just said we want to support you guys a little bit. And I don't want no clapping for us on this. It's just that this is how cool we think this is as fans. The friendships that are built over something like this. It's been very important to me and you, Joey, in our friendship. It's been a way for us, even though we have moved apart in distance, this is something that has kept us close. And it's neat to see this going on. So they're going to be going, and it looks like their trip is from August 7th to the 9th. And if I'm looking at the calendar right there, that's a Sunday, Monday, Tuesday.
That's right.
So they So they're going all out. They're gonna have T-shirts. They're gonna have a big banner there. So go check them out. So some tips if you're gonna go to this training camp, consider bringing an umbrella.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, really, is that sun where the fans have to sit and watch this is that you are just getting beat down in the middle of
And
the sun,
it's
and the players are too.
exposed. Yes, it's
Yeah,
exposed. There's no shade where the biggest group of people will be. There's no shade. It's wide open. So an umbrella is a must. You want to have lots of sunscreen. You want to have probably a blanket or something to sit on because it is grass.
yeah.
Um,
You can bring chairs in. You
yeah,
can.
you can make
The
chairs.
the thing that you're going to want to do is you're going to want to bring a cooler. Come prepared. It's almost like going to the beach, except for you watch football instead of the ocean.
Right.
And I mean, it's hot when there's no ocean breeze either. But bring an umbrella, bring your sunscreen, bring something to sit on, bring lots of water.
Right.
Because if not, you want to make sure you're prepared, or else it's just kind of uncomfortable.
Right,
And
you won't enjoy it. You'll be
yeah,
more miserable, and you'll be more miserable and more focused on watching the practice and enjoying what you're there to do. They do have vendors. They have T-shirts you can buy. Um, they have food trucks that were selling various types of food. They have a little ball field where the kids can throw the ball around and play. So they've got stuff for everyone, and it's a good way to, like I said, really get a certain level of closeness with a team that you have never experienced otherwise.
yeah. Also, shout out to everybody on YouTube as well. I got the comments. I can see you guys there. People are chiming in on Twitter. Other tips for training camp, and we won't spend too long because as we get there, we'll have plenty to talk about. But one thing is that if you bring your kids with you, they have this cool thing that you do at the beginning is you sign up, you put their name in you sign this little slip, and then towards the end of training camp, they call all the people over there. You got to be sure to make it. And they pick 5 kids to go out there and meet a Carolina Panther.
Hmm.
So if you have children, I suggest doing this. And that's a cool experience. They really try. The kids get first priority and attention. Shakid said that um, he went to Wofford on a Sunday after FanFest. It was surprised he could bring in free food and drink. Yeah, and you can. Like they're not real tight on those types of things. It's
Not at
not.
all.
It's the one time where they're not really trying to make money off of you. I feel like
Right,
they
right,
will try to get you to buy some PSLs while you're there.
of course.
But that's cool. That's what they're supposed to do. So also Spartanburg, cool little town, lots of little things to do there. Growing city. So that's it. Joey, a couple of other things I do want to point out. I'm in a German town, and I went to the beer store before the show,
Nice.
and I got this beer. It is a Erdinger. Oh man, that's who it's by. Erdinger Wee Beer Dunkel. Way
That's a
Beer
dark.
Dunkel.
That means I think it means a dark wheat beer.
Is that what it is?
Yeah,
I'll tell
Dunkel
you.
means dark.
It is dark. It's really smooth. Maybe some hints of wheat, but it is dark. It's a dark beer. It's
Yeah.
all natural, bottled, fermented. So I guess that means that there is some yeast down in the bottom.
Right.
So that's pretty cool. Other thing, one fun thing, just a side story, Joey. Part of any family members here is that we all have people that are in the same kind of age group in the same situation. So I'm 34. I've got 3 kids. Miranda has cousins that are in our age bracket, so our kids have kids to play with, and we have big kids to play with. And so we the big kids go out, and every now and then we go out to the bars. And so we went out to the bars in Helen, and this is a mountain town, small, and you hate to be critical of the type of people that are in these bars. but they lived up to that kind of mountain reputation.
Oh, lovely.
So, on top of this is that my wife's cousins, who are fantastic, they have a great sense of humor, and they like to play games when they go out. And the game that they most like to play is the lying game, where we go under assumed identities
Oh
and
my goodness.
make up crazy stories about ourselves. So, anyway, three of us went out celebrating my bachelor party. My name was Vincent Vincenzo, and one of them was we went to college together, and one of them was a rapper in college in the 90s, and his rap name was Locate. And the other guy was like or some weird name that he always his alias, and he's a former minor league baseball player. So Vincent Vincenzo, K.A. for the professor, is Vincent Vincenzo or Vic Vinegar, because we kept making jokes about my name. Turns out Vincent Vincenzo is marrying a nice Jewish girl by the name of Cassidy Dershowitz. And I'm converting to Judaism for my love.
Oh my God.
And this went on, and boy, did they buy it hook, line, and sinker. And me and Cassidy are going to be opening a organic kosher beer bar in Madeline, Montana.
Oh my God.
And as I'm telling people this story, this group of girls who were on a bachelorette rampage, and boy, this was a really interesting group of people. I was drinking a Bud Light as we were talking about my organic kosher beer store. And on top of that, none of it was freaking them out until they found out what converting to Judaism meant. And so out of all the crazy things that were going down there, like the whole thing went silent when one girl said, "What does that mean?" I said, "Well, that means we believe Jesus was just a dude." And like, so all the craziness that's happening at the bar at 1 o'clock in the morning, and that's the thing that silenced the whole bunch. Not Vincent Vincenzo. No. Boy, that went over like a fart in church. We had a fantastic time. The story was epic. There's so much more to it, but that's what we do here. We have a good time. So Germantown, drinking German beer. Joey, storylines, talking about Carolina Panthers. Michael Oher signed a 3-year extension. That's something to talk about. What do you think that says? I saw that he was ranked almost last in run blocking last year, but 15th in pass blocking.
And I think that's where his value lies, protecting Cam's blind side and knowing that you're going to get pretty consistent play over there. 15th is middle of the road. You know, there being 32 NFL teams, so there's 32 left tackles in the league starting. So that's middle of the road, and that's all you want, is you want some consistency and dependability over there. Cam can make a lot of things happen on his own. You just don't want him to have to be doing it every single time he drops back to pass. And that's what Oher provides. Plus, I guess he likes it in Charlotte. We're happy to have him. And I guess at the same time, that just means we couldn't find anyone better, frankly. Right?
You think? Yeah. Okay. Well, or we had no desire to look for anyone better.
Right. We're happy enough with what we have. The devil you know is better than the devil you don't know. Right.
Yeah, and I mean, he did play. First of all, it was a tremendous upgrade from what we had from the year before with Byron Bell. I'd say downgrade. And most people aren't going to like to hear this, but probably a lateral move in comparison when you're talking about Jordan Gross at that point in his career. Jordan Gross obviously is a fantastic left tackle and far better than Michael Oher, far better career. But I think you're kind of middle of the road at that point.
Right.
But he certainly, when you look at Michael Oher, he struggles tremendously in the running attack. I mean, he just has a hard time pushing guys backwards. He's
Right.
much better coming off with that kind of kick step thing that they do.
versus the attacking style,
which I find that surprising.
Yeah, me too. But you know, that's really what you want from your left tackle. We're more of an inside run team anyway. We don't always we prefer to run inside versus going outside. You know, we'll run inside the tackles instead of trying to go around them, and um, that suits this team well.
Yeah, and you know what? It's a lot easier to run block when you got Cam Newton back there. It's almost in the traditional running attack that he struggles. But this, you know, I've been thinking about this move, Joey, and like you said, is better the devil you know than the devil you don't know. He has been. We've done well with him. He hasn't been dominant, but he's been pretty good. He had a healthy season last year. If he's healthy again, you know, maybe we're starting to see some continuity on that line. But my question to you, Joey, is have the Panthers done anything to upgrade from last year? Or are they really is turning into like a Major League Baseball team that just builds through the farm system? And I'm not saying free agent, like we haven't had any free agent additions, like none.
Nothing major. No, well, let me think.
We signed a punter.
Right.
We signed a cornerback and then let him go.
Right. Yeah, you're right. We really haven't made any significant moves, which isn't a bad thing. I think that just proves Gettleman trusts his intuition and he believes in the system that he has in place. And I mean, to this point, what have we seen to make us not feel like he knows what he's doing, right?
Now, I do. Okay, so interesting point. One of the things that about that, at some point, you know, we fawn over him.
Yes.
And do we give? Are we prone now with what such success we have to maybe overlook everything and defend everything?
I would say we could be susceptible to that, yes, because we've had such tremendous success in such a short amount of time. Yes, we could become susceptible to that, to where no matter what move he makes, we're thinking we're going to get some good out of it. But we haven't seen him make a bad move per se.
No.
You know, he had the hiccup with the one guy from the small college, Kabila, that can never get healthy.
Right.
So that was one hiccup, but you know that was sort of a fluke. It was an injury thing as opposed to play.
Byron Bell at left tackle.
Byron Bell at left tackle, yeah. But that was just him playing the cards he was dealt at that time.
I agree. Yeah. You're right. Is that like, look, there's a reason we got Dave Gettleman as the AVI. But one thing though, and let's go to this as other news. I think first of all, what do we see by this is we extended Ryan Khalil, we extended Michael Oher. What this seems to tell me is I would watch for the Panthers to finally address those positions in the draft over the next 2 years now.
Oh, I agree.
Because he doesn't like to do it in a manner of necessity, you know, like, well, we're just going to do this. I think he tries to do it in a more natural grooming way. So I would say that we've been waiting and waiting for that left tackle. You might get it coming up now because they're probably saying we can make do with Michael Oher for 2 more years.
Right.
And that's the time to groom a guy. Maybe Darrell Williams taking in the right tackle, maybe a new left tackle. I wouldn't expect it to be in free agency by any means, though.
No.
No. The other thing, though, is one of the main things kind of around the talk is JP the Pope put up a story on CarolinaCapChronicles.com, or a story. He put up a post that said he expects to have 2 rookie starting corners on the outside by midway through the season. he said that he started off his post by saying, "This is a bold statement." Joey, how bold is that? And because to me, this is the one area where I am starting to say this is out of. This is not like Dave Gettleman, and this is not like Ron Rivera, where we're at this point with our secondary. But what do you think about that? Is could you see these guys starting midway through the season?
I think if we don't make any moves, which I do think we will, but if we don't make any moves as far as acquiring a veteran, these are going to be the starters week one. Um, so I think it's entirely possible that midway through the year, these guys will be the starting corners. Um, we know Bene is going to come back, and since Norman's departure, since the draft of the three defensive backs that we did, Rivera has kind of gone away from saying Sticky Wicky was going to be the slot guy. They were going to move him back inside. They are now planning on him being an outside corner, which I think is, obvious. That's an obvious necessity. So he's going to be there. And then one of the other three guys will have to be the opposite corner on the field, with one of those three being one of the three, the two remaining will be the slot guy. So this is going to happen. I was watching David Carr on NFL Network, and they were talking about the Broncos, and he thought that the rookie quarterback they drafted, the big guy from Memphis State, I can't think of his name right now, but that he expected him to win the starting job. And he said he thinks he could have a career game against the Carolina Panthers. So at that time, I sent I tweeted him, big game against the Panthers, no way. But now looking at our secondary, I'm thinking, wow, he could have been thinking about the rookie starting and this quarterback being able to take advantage of that.
Who is this guy again?
David Carr was the quarterback, former number one draft pick for the Houston Texans. He said that about the guy that the Broncos drafted in the first round, the rookie quarterback. The big guy, I can't think of his name. His name escapes me. From Memphis State. Or from Memphis.
Okay. I got you. Didn't they get him I thought they got him was it the first or was it later?
It was late in the first. It was their first.
Okay.
Yeah. So anyway, they got him, and he was saying he could have a career day against the Panthers. And I didn't think about it then, but I was like, no way, this is going to happen. And now I'm looking like, well, if they got two rookie defensive backs out there, maybe he could have.
Paxton Lynch?
Paxton Lynch. Yeah.
Okay. First of all, let's go ahead and say this about David Carr.
Exactly. Hey, it's David Carr.
Yeah. And second, a career day when you've never played a game.
Right.
Is, of course, a career day.
Right. That's your first game, so it's your career.
Yes.
But I think his point was that he could have a really big day against the secondary.
Well, they got good receivers. I mean, they got great receivers. So here's what this all is. And let's just I want to get to some comments on YouTube, and then we'll continue that point, Joey. Is it was I saw a good comment from BS12, which he said, what moves would we be making that would significantly upgrade the roster versus what we already have? I don't see that many players out there that just scream upgrade at a position. And to me, what we've already kind of hinted on is that this secondary, it stems beyond the corners, Joe. You're talking about Coleman being the only guy that's had real experience in the NFL.
Right.
Trey Boston, very limited experience and questions. We don't know. I mean, while he's looked good at times, you really don't know. The other thing I think too is, Shakit said, we signed Paul Soliai, and that Kelvin Benjamin is in many ways like getting a free agency signing. You could throw Stephen Hill in there. I agree with those points. Is that like our wide receiver core is significantly upgraded. But here's where this goes to where I raise questions with this, and we've mentioned this on in previous podcasts, Joey, is that fielding these two cornerbacks and two safeties, and the idea that Lou Young is going to be a guy that could be starting and make this team, McLean being a guy that you need to contribute at the corner. You really need Ben Wickery to just finally just be the guy, all this hinges on everything working perfectly.
Right.
And that's hard when you're talking about pieces that you don't know if it would work under the best circumstances. And then what happens when something goes wrong? And we all know this is that, like, basically there are injuries that happen in the NFL. You're not going to go 16 weeks and not have a significant injury. And the good teams are the ones that are able to overcome those and persevere through those injuries. And much like we were able to do just by adding some kind of savvy veterans to a team that was good enough already, that you just needed some guys that weren't going to screw up. I don't know if we're in that position when it comes to the secondary. And then second, all of this really, Joey, is contingent on our pass rush being smothering.
Effective, yes. Highly effective, yes.
You're talking 2013 effective.
Right.
And so where to me, I'm just kind of confused by this is Dave Gettleman has seemed to, in the past, be very willing to try to build some kind of sneaky depth in the lineup.
Mm-hmm.
It's nobody that's jumping off the page, nobody that you're like, oh, this is a guy, but he's made some acquisitions, some signings, under the radar things that have panned out to be important. Adding to that, I don't see this as a coaching staff with Ron Rivera that's really interested in putting too much responsibility and pressure on rookies. So I just feel like the secondary thing is it might work and they might prove to be geniuses, but it almost seems a little out of character for them.
Well, let's be realistic. What we're looking at here is the pieces that we have to put into this puzzle. There are more questions than there are answers regarding them. Even like Trey Boston, we're hoping and thinking he can come and fit in right away. And he has played very well in spots, but, we're talking about a 16-week season plus playoffs. Being on the field for 95% of those snaps. What are we going to see from him? What's his consistency going to be like? Is he going to be consistent?
Do you run out of gas? Do you hit a wall at any point? It's a big jump. And these guys, and we see this with a guy like Mike Remmers, to me, is that the season gets long to him.
Right.
We see this with guys that have really flashed early, like rookies that have come out and played well, is that they start to kind of plateau, normalize 3 quarters through the season because it's long, it's grueling, and you put too many snaps on a guy, that's tough on them.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's the rookies are especially vulnerable, having come from college where they play 10, 11, maybe 12 games in a season, and you've got the NFL, which goes 16 weeks and then a postseason. So the rookies really fall susceptible to that wall, just running out of gas because they've never had to push it the way they are. And that's, that's one of the things we have to contend with. This team has definitely has lost experience. Other than the abilities physically and what Josh Norman can do on the field, his experience is lost. And that's something you can't make up no matter how much talent you have. You can't make that experience up.
Yeah, and we have seen, and going back to this again, you're talking about a guy. Look, what have been some of the pivotal signings that we've been very critical? It's almost like this: is for the last 3 years we've been critical of Dave Gettleman going out there and getting these old guys um, that seemingly are going to be warm bodies on the team instead of really doing something that's kind of, I guess, what we wanted to be decisive. So like when I wanted them to go after Cersei and and he went to the Titans, and that was a strong safety that played at UNC Chapel Hill and went to within the Bills, and who played well for the Titans. As you know, what did they do? They stick with guys like Roman Harper. They brought in what was the Drayton Florence.
Mm.
You know, is that it seems like they've appreciated that veteran ability and savvy. Now,
Right.
maybe that tells us something about what they're seeing from these guys as becoming pros.
That is very true. You know, they spend the most time with these guys. They see them in this, in you know, watching film. They see them with the little things where we don't get quite as fine. We're more finite in what we see, where they see everything. And obviously they see something they like.
But
And that's not to say really that, you know, once we get a few weeks into training camp and some cuts are made, we won't bring somebody in.
or you know what is there's still 3 weeks. There's still there's a full month before training camp, and there's guys like out there sitting out there like Antonio Cromartie, who's right.
Uh-huh.
Yeah, Leon Hall, Alan Ball, another guy we were interested in. So I wouldn't be surprised if it's not like, hey, just because you didn't have a guy in OTAs, that means you're not going to be like they can't get caught
Get
up.
somebody, yeah. I agree. And I frankly I think they will.
Yeah, I don't. If I was going to bet on it, I'd say that Dave Gettleman's not done. The other thing is, speaking of an old guy that said he wants to join the team, Peanut Tillman says that he wants to play for Carolina.
And only Carolina.
He's coming off a nasty, was it a knee injury or always the ACL or?
Yeah, I think it was an ACL tear.
He's old. He's really old.
37?
That's really old.
Yeah.
And you're talking about not only is he just old, is that he's coming off a major injury. And this, by the way, is I think his third major injury in 4 seasons.
Yeah, that's right. He's had 2 pectorals torn.
Yeah.
That cost him 2 seasons, and then this knee injury cost him a 3rd season in the last 4 years.
Okay, so that
that's not a good history. You know what I mean? That's not a good history.
And he was great when he played for us. Or I won't say great. You know what? He was productive.
Yes.
He was helpful.
Yes.
That you did see people try to attack him, though. When you watch those games, they early went after him, and he was able to, at times, you know, you could see him being beat a little bit, but I think the veteran savvy in him was able to make up for some of that.
For sure.
But I don't even think just him alone would be enough, Joey.
No, I agree. I think, you know, you bring Tillman in secondarily to bring someone else in. For example, you bring in a Leon Hall. And then you may add Tillman, you know, right before the start of the season or something. But I don't think you go Tillman first and then bring somebody in. I think you
right,
you know, do it the other way. And I think you did a retweet. I think that Leon Hall is close to signing with someone. Didn't you tweet that out?
Yeah. Yeah, he's met with 4 teams. He met with the Falcons. He met with the Cardinals, Dallas, and I don't know what was the other team. It wasn't the Panthers, but they said that it could be, it could be with a team that he has just ties with in some cases. But there's another guy that's coming off another major injury. I think also an ACL. It was ACL or Achilles, one of the two.
Yeah.
But okay, so definitely something to be watching. The other thing I want to talk about is I saw a story on Carolina Huddle, who's still on my shit list, by the way. Um, but I saw a story about possible trade scenarios, and the names he threw out were so unimpressive. You're talking about Dixon being the best, biggest name out of the group there. Um, you see anybody with the depth? All right. Um, I think it was Joan that brought this up this week is that, is Short a guy that you would consider trading?
I would say yes. I would
Wow. I was
consider.
going to say absolutely no.
I would consider it if the the what we're getting in return is fair. I wouldn't trade him for like a fourth round pick. That's not fair to me. I wouldn't trade him for a third round pick. It would have to be a second and something else, a second and a player maybe, or 2 seconds. I mean, it would have to be something. They'd have to give up something because they're getting a hell of a player.
Yeah. I mean, I don't even know who you would. I would think it would have to be like 2 first-round draft picks.
Right. I mean, for sure we would take that, but I might even go 2 second-round picks. I might would do
Here's the
that.
thing, though, is that I mean, you get them this year, you get them next year on the tag.
Right.
You can potentially lock up a long. Yeah, I mean, there is some solid value there. I don't like the idea of just saying that Vernon Butler's a lock. And, that. But here's again is I just don't think we can sacrifice depth in a situation while, Dave Gettleman said a couple of things. While he says he's building for long-term success, he has mentioned in the same very breath of those conversations that there's a short window in the NFL.
Mm-hmm.
And that doesn't mean you bet the farm on the window, but what it does is that I feeling good enough to where you're going to sacrifice the depth at a position when you already have some questions in other positions about the rotation and the depth.
Right.
And it would be hard for me to fathom that. So I really don't see a trade happening so much. But other names that were on the list I saw were Ted Ginn Jr.,
Mm-hmm.
Philly Brown, and the other was AJ Klein was a potential name. And I feel like I'm missing one. Oh, Fozzie Whitaker. Here's the problem, Joey. None of those guys get you anything.
Exactly. Well, the only one I would say maybe would be Klein, because he's young and he's shown some really good ability. In fact, I think when he becomes a free agent, I wouldn't be surprised if somebody signs him away from us.
Yeah, he's good. He's pretty good when he plays middle linebacker. He is
Yes.
not very good when he plays outside linebacker.
No.
He's too
No.
slow.
Yeah. He doesn't.
And it's not that he's slow. It's just that you got to have outside linebacker, the people that you're going to be covering and the assignments you get kind of require that lateral speed.
Right. You got to be an exceptional athlete. And he's not an exceptional athlete. He's a good athlete. He's not exceptional, though.
But what do you
Um,
get for a guy like that? I mean, what do you get for a guy like AJ or Fozzie? You're talking
right.
like
And there
a
again,
fifth round pick, maybe?
maybe a fourth, but is that worth it? You're sacrificing depth, like you said. He's a special teams player. You really need all the special teams help you can get because
And
we
a guy
still,
that's good in case you have a problem with an injury.
for example, last year, Kuechly getting that concussion in week 1. Klein stepped in and played very well in his place for what, 3 weeks? Wasn't it
Uh,
3 weeks? He was out 4 weeks or
yeah,
3 weeks in the bye, something like that.
the
Um,
girl gang, Abby's saying AJ would start on another team.
I agree. I think he would be in contention, depending on where he's at. He would certainly be in contention.
Yeah, and at the middle line, he's great against the run. He struggles against the pass.
He does.
And I don't know if you say struggle. I know that sounds harsh, but he's better against the run.
Undoubtedly.
He can make some hay
Yeah.
when it's a
Against the
running
run.
play. Yeah, I
Yes.
mean, you see him making like impact plays there.
Right.
But okay, I want to talk about another thing with Dave Gettleman. I saw it turned out to be the Dave Gettleman episode. And it's not been our first. Usually we're just like got those puppy eyes. Or
Yes.
I feel like this is every time I talk about Dave Gettleman. Do you remember in that Indiana Jones movie where that girl sat on the front row and wrote like "I love you" on her eyelids? Like that's how I feel like every time I talk about Dave Gettleman. I think I shot it to you earlier this evening. I don't know if you had a chance to see it, but it was an article about how some NFL agents weren't particularly impressed with tough talk coming out of Dave Gettleman, particularly and surprisingly when it came to K1 Short, a guy that he has talked. I mean, boy, Dave Gettleman, he doesn't really just fall in love with dudes. You know, I don't feel like he just goes on and on about how great some guys are. But he says that about Kelvin Benjamin. Kelvin Benjamin's a guy, he talks about that a lot. Like, and K1 Short has been a guy that he is just always raved about. But he said this is that I think the quote was something to the effect of, you know, I think agents, I hope they've come to understand that I'm talking about fair market price with these guys, and I'm not going to fall in love to the point where I bet the farm on them. And basically, it was like you're going to take what I say, or we're just not going to get deals done. And he was saying this when asked about K1 Short, which was very surprising, probably not so surprising given the fact of the Fletcher Cox deal and things like that. But he's playing hardball. He's puffing up his chest. He's posturing. What do you think about this? Is when these anonymous agents say this crap, does that mean anything to you?
No.
I agree. Like, who holds the cards here?
Right, exactly. Who's the one with all the money?
Who's the one that wants the money?
Right.
So
exactly.
they will take whatever.
Right, and that's his approach. You know, he's what? He's 70 something, late 60s. He's been in the league 30 plus years. You know, he's seen it all. This is not new or foreign territory for him. He's been there. He's seen this. And, you know, he knows he's not going to cut his own throat to keep one player. It's not worth it. You know, it's not worth sacrificing the franchise for the next 2 or 3 years to have one guy on the team. Unless the guy's Cam Newton or Luke Kuechly, something like that. You know, but K1 is a defensive lineman who they've already drafted a replacement for. So,
here, this is what he said. Gettleman explained this, and this, I believe, was with in an interview, I think, with Bill Voth from Black and Blue Review. Mm-hmm. He was talking about, he said, I can never fault a guy when he's getting what we call the first kick of the can. And he was referring to their first contract after their rookie deal. He goes on to say, I would never get upset. It's a business. And just like I hope they don't get upset with me when I don't give them what they want.
Mm-hmm.
That's some pretty strong words right there. Saying, is it hardball, Joe? Is he just cutting it straight?
I think he's just telling them flat out. You know, he's not trying to be a douche or trying to be, you know, a jerk. He's just telling you, you know, this is my limit. This is where I can go. I can't go beyond that. And that's telling it straight. You know, when you go shopping for Christmas, you know, this is my limit. This is what the most I can spend. I can't spend more than this because after Christmas and all the happiness is gone, I'm going to start to get these bills. And I can't afford them if I go over this limit. And that's what he's doing. He's just saying, this is it. This is the most I can spend.
This is why I would not make a good GM, Joey, because I like that Christmas Day feeling.
Right. And the inclination is to, wow, this guy is so talented and so great. Let's keep him. Let's spend the money on him. But then 3 years down the road, he's 31 now. He's only getting 2 sacks a year and 13 tackles, and you still have to pay the man $17 million.
Shaquille said he's 66.
66. Okay. So he's been in the NFL 30 plus years.
That's not too old. He's still got. You're talking about he could be our GM for 15 years.
Yeah. At least
I know 81 puts you high, but I feel like the dude that he worked under in New York was like close to 80 when he retired.
Yeah.
Like they just replaced the Giants GM. He was old. He was old. He made Dave Gettleman look young. So yeah, I think how does that fly though? And do we just need to come to accept, look, we've seen him cut ties with Steve Smith. Mm-hmm. We've seen him be, he learned a lot, and he admitted to this, learning a lot in his first year as a GM, and he maybe didn't handle these situations as delicately, at least with just kind of recognizing the player feeling and, is that you could still do the same things, but sometimes deliver the message is, right. I felt like he started to, or at least he tried to handle things a lot different when it came to D'Angelo Williams, even though that kind of went south just because D'Angelo Williams is kind of kooky, weirdo jerk. And or weird. He's just a weirdo. He's super sensitive. But I feel like he tried to get better like that. And I just wonder, is he learning those lessons long term? It's surprising. This whole short thing is very surprising, but I think what he's going to say is that K1, is that not only are we willing to let you walk and not pay you the money that you want, is we still got 2 years with you.
Right.
We really want. And that's that's not good for KK.
No.
So I think his agent is going to have to figure out a way to try to manage these things and say, what can we do to win both battles without losing, or win the war, but never winning a decisive battle, should I say?
Right, and that's where your agent makes his hay. He has to make his hay by getting you the best possible deal. Now, whether that's with the Carolina Panthers, the Dallas Cowboys, the New England Patriots, who knows?
What if you do something like this, Joey? What if you just negotiate a deal and part of the deal is no franchise tag at the end?
Well, if you wanted to do something short term, I'm sure Gettleman would probably consider it, and that's what we were talking about a few shows ago, where we were, maybe it was last week, we were talking about the short term contract.
I'm still working on the piece that I started that night.
Oh yeah,
and it keeps getting bigger and longer, easier. But yeah, is that the short-term deal? But there's some nuances, Joey, with contracts that we don't get to see. We get so caught up in time, guaranteed money,
right,
average pay per year. But what about something as small as saying this is a 2-year contract with a no
franchise tag?
Yeah, that's a big kind of ad right there.
Yeah, I agree. That's a huge topic because that is leverage the team has. And if they put that in the contract, they give that up. So at the end of 2 years, if you think you're gonna make more money at Indianapolis, you're gonna go, and there's nothing the team can do about it. So that's a big deal. And
the option, I guess, the player could say that I'll let you get and tag me. But here, Skeet says the Panthers won't agree to this type of deal. What I think though they may is because of this is really, and I think with Josh Norman is secretly, maybe Dave Gettleman, there's all these weird circumstances, but I still think he did Norman a solid.
Yeah.
Like if you're Norman, there's a reason he just took out an ad in the newspaper talking about how much he loved Carolina.
Yes.
Even though he kind of was shocked and he wanted to be in Carolina, he wanted to be with that team. he hasn't taken it too hard because it worked out for him. And I think that's where the franchise tag hurts a lot of players or these things is the idea is this is like, hey, I did all the right things. If you're K1, sure, you do all the right things. You have this monster year and you want to negotiate a contract just because you're at the time, you want to get an extension. But even if you don't and you go out in good faith, the team still has this crazy option to keep extending you where you never get to that point. And that's where you get guys like Muhammad Wilkerson or look at Von Miller.
Yeah.
Von Miller straight up said he wouldn't play for the cap. And it's nice to play under the franchise tag.
Right.
And so maybe Dave Gettleman is interested in letting these guys get a kick of the can.
Right, and you're right. Josh Harmon was done a solid by Gettleman because he was able to go and make the money he wanted. So he knows that he's set now. If he gets hurt and doesn't play another down of football during the season ever, he knows he's set and his family's taken care of. And that's good for Josh Norman. But I think the players, when they negotiated this collective bargaining agreement with the NFL, they thought that the salary or the franchise tag was going to be a good thing for the players because they knew they would be able to get, the average salary of the top 5 player at that position.
Yeah.
But little do now we've seen this incredible jump from what guys were making 2 or 3 years ago to what they're making now at non-skill positions. You know what I'm saying? Wide receivers, quarterbacks, running backs, they were the guys making the big bucks before. But now you've got defensive linemen making $15 million a year or better. And that's just crazy. So I think the franchise tag has come back to the players as like, hey, wait, maybe this isn't such a good thing. And for the next collective bargaining agreement, I think they're going to try to take it away from the teams so that the teams can't use it anymore.
I mean, I would because here's if you get first of all, you're already getting a rookie player for 5 years.
Right.
You sign that extension and then you get to tag them.
That's 6.
I mean, guys, their whole career is getting away from them.
Right. They're going to be on the downside of their career by the time they're able to go out and get that first kick of the can, right?
Right. And one thing, though, I want to caution, or at least, and I'd like to know your feelings because we're going to have to wrap this up shortly, but I don't like when people say this is like, if you get the tag, it's not that bad of a gig because you're going to get, so for instance, Greg Hardy got the tag, and he was going to make $1 million a game, basically, or $865,000 a game.
Right.
And you talk about a $14 million year, and yes, that is great to us because we make
considerably less.
Right. So we're all sitting there going, that's an unfathomable amount of money, and it's so much, and get over it and quit your crying. 2 things going to stand out to me on this, Joanne, though. This is why I won't say sympathize for them or empathize, but I understand that it's not just like, them being greedy. One is that the $14 million sounds like a lot, but what if you talked about how much the team made that year?
I mean, comparatively speaking?
Yeah. You're talking about a team that has a profit margin that is insane. Like if we started talking about just how much the Carolina Panthers organization profited, not made,
right,
but profited.
Profit, right.
Like these so big that we wouldn't even be able to wrap around our heads around them. So
right. That $14 million looks rather minuscule comparatively speaking.
It's pretty awesome when the trick that NFL owners and teams are able to play on fans alike is that like we start coming to their defense. I heard this one radio, this show on ESPN radio, and it was the trifecta, and it's these three girls, I forget their names, very good show. And she said, this is the one time that you find people cheering for the man. Like in every other instance, we pull for the guy that's not the man, the underdog, but you're pulling for the owner, you're pulling for the team, and because your allegiance is with the team. The other thing, too, that I want to add my own original thought on this is that, like, when you talk about, well, 14 million and the difference between, say, like even just a 2-year, 19 million deal, you're talking like 40% difference. Like when you start putting it in percentage numbers, is that if your health insurance went up 40%, Joey, next year, you would be upset. Yes. In fact, that's what Americans are upset about, right? But the point is when it's kind of like this, is just because you add $1 on the bread, just because it was only $1 and now it's $2, and $2 isn't a big deal, that's still 100% increase. So when you start thinking about that, is that you're asking a guy to settle for 40% less. When you start using these terminology, I think it frames it in a different light.
Wow. I think you're right. When you look right, you see it from a different perspective.
Right. And you got to just do like Dave Gettleman is doing what's best for the Panthers. K1 Short's got to do what's best for him. But I don't think at any case you win with a holdout. And I don't think you can win. How about this? With other organizations, you may be able to win with a holdout. I don't think you can win against Dave Gettleman with a holdout.
No, I would agree with you. I don't think you can win. That's a losing battle.
I mean, you're talking about a team that just straight up didn't even fight the Greg Hardy thing. They didn't complain about it. They didn't cry about it. They just sat him.
Yeah.
I don't think Dave, and I think and maybe this is why the agents are upset with Dave Gettleman, is he probably he's finally calling them to the floor and just saying, guess what? You can't hold us hostage because we'll be a team next year and your player could be out of the league in 2 years.
Yeah.
So I think it's a little, I think that's just kind of sour grapes by the agents. All right, that's plenty to talk about. Joey, are there any last things you want to hit up on before we close this sucker out?
No, I just want to mention the fans, please visit our website, CarolinaCatChronicles.com, for all the hottest Panther takes from the fans' perspective. Guys, we do this every week, and we do it because we love the Carolina Panthers and because we know you love the Carolina Panthers. So we are fans doing this for fans, and really, the most important thing I can say about this whole thing is football without the fans, without me and you, is nothing more than a kid's game. So just remember that.
Yeah, it's nothing more than just like when my kids were playing spoons. With all those kids sitting there playing a card game with spoons. Is that without us, we do make it something more than just a kid's game. And you're right, Joe. All right, so we'll have training. We can talk about training camp battles. We'll be back to normal next week. But we can't go without some Ice Up picks.
That's right.
You got one for me?
I do. It's kind of been in the news here lately. It was the death of Anton Yelchin. He is the guy that played Commander Chekhov on the new Star Treks. Talented young actor. I really liked him in that role. I'm a Star Trek fan. I admit it. I'm not ashamed of it. Star Wars, Star Trek. I grew up in that time frame where these were popular movies. And anyway, it's sad that the circumstances surrounding his death, Jeep had a recall on this really popular vehicle. Now that I've known about the recall, I see these vehicles everywhere. So they're really popular.
Tell me about it a little bit. Tell me a little bit about it. I'm not familiar.
It's funny enough, the problem is the vehicle sometimes when it's in park or in neutral will slip into drive or slip into neutral, and there's nobody behind the wheel, and that's what happened in this case.
Oh, so it's just a straight transmission problem.
Yeah, it's a transmission problem, which is, you think about it, that's other than the engine, the transmission is the major component in your vehicle.
Yeah, it's the most. That's why it's the most expensive.
Exactly. He got out of the car. He had it in park or neutral. Got out of the car and went to check his mail. And I guess he had one of those really big brick mailboxes, that has a mailbox with a stone built around it. Anyway, he was in front of the vehicle, and the vehicle slipped into gear or slipped into neutral and pinned him against his mailbox. And it killed him. It said he died within a minute of blunt traumatic.
God. So he just got crushed.
Right. Blunt traumatic asphyxia was what the coroner determined was his death. So, I really...
He suffocated.
He suffocated, right, like instantly. So he had no chance. And it's really sad that it took something this big to make this recall so well known. The government's got to step in and do a better job of making people aware of this thing, because I don't even know if he was aware of it. You know what I mean? I don't know that he was aware of the recall.
Yeah, I think that not only does the government need
but the manufacturer.
Is that if you're not really aware, there should be some way for us to be more aware, like recall information, other than that kind of like, well, we just sent you a little postcard in the mail.
Right. Or they'll send you a letter saying your vehicle needs to go to, and that's it. There's nothing more. They really need to make sure these people are being reached and connected to, so that they can get this taken care of. So this sort of thing is avoided. Had it been some Joe Schmo from, San Antonio, it wouldn't have been so widely publicized. But the fact that it was a young, up-and-coming actor, it has drawn more attention. But it's unfortunate that's what it took. So I say to Jeep and the Jeep manufacturer, ice up, son.
All right, so I do want to give a shout out to at Esoteric Cranium. First he is excuse me, I gotta look at the switch from screen to screen. He was in the conversation on YouTube. It was his first C3 podcast, BS12 on YouTube. Said he enjoyed the podcast. Well, you know what? We enjoyed having you. And like Joey mentioned, this is we do this not for ourselves. Well, we do this because we're fans, and we've built some great relationships. Some of my best friends in the world come through this podcast, and some of them I've never even met in person, but I'm going to meet some of them at training camp, and those
for sure. We're excited about
7th through 9th. So the ice up, just to you, Spence at Esoteric Cranium. Thank you for joining the show. We want to see you in the future. Give us a share. We'd love for more Panther fans to know about this. But this is our favorite segment. This is the ice up segment of the week, where we tell somebody to ice up, toughen up, and get it together. Joey told Jeep, the manufacturer Jeep, and are they GM? Are they Chrysler?
I think so. I think it's GM.
Well, to me, this one, and I was about to go off on this girl on Twitter about, she was upset that Cam Newton was at a strip club, and he was a father, and he was a father, and all this crap. But I'm not even gonna waste my breath on that, because first of all, there are people too with rights, and I've always had a blast at them myself, and I feel like I'm a pretty dang good father. I mean, I'm here for my family, all these kids around.
You're not at the strip club right now.
That's right, but there's no problem with having a little fun every now and then. But here, my ice up this week goes to the New York Post, who called. The New York Post goes off on New York City's plan to offer free Wi-Fi throughout the city. New York City is under this great initiative where they're turning old payphones into basically like Wi-Fi
hotspots.
Yeah, and not only are they hotspots, but they're actually putting like a tablet in there, so you can kind of go up to it like an ATM, I think.
Oh my God!
And use the internet. And it's this huge initiative. It's like the biggest one in the world. Not only, all right, so it says this is under the program, some 7,500 Wi-Fi kiosks will be available where they give gigabyte Wi-Fi. So it's even good, great internet, free phone calls anywhere in the country via Vonage, as well as access to device recharging station 311, 911, and 411, all integrated with an Android tablet. So you can use this tablet to call and make some things.
Wow.
You're talking about, so anyway, the New York Post craps on this and says, or at least that's the headline that I read on this tech site that says New York Post craps on NYC's plan to offer free Wi-Fi because the homeless might watch porn.
Oh my God.
So they said, they go on to this quote, the plan badly backfired when scores of homeless men and some school children soon realized they surf porn sites all day on the city's dime using this communal Android-run tablet and free Wi-Fi. It goes on to say that some guy from Dallas quoted that I used to come here in the 70s talking about, and I remember thinking Times Square was skeezy as you could get, but I was wrong. He's former New Yorker and he lives in Dallas now. This is skeezy as Times Square could get. I mean, in the old days, there were plenty of porn, but you could only see it behind closed doors. So at least there was a level of modesty. You know what? Here's the New York Post and this guy by the name of Richard Herzberg. The internet is the greatest damn invention of mankind since the printing press. Like, whatever bad things come with the internet, or luxuries, maybe some people would call them, is all nullified by the greatness of it. And talking about somebody of how helpful of an invention this could be, that's like trying to say like penicillin sucks.
Right.
So free Wi-Fi to people will make the world better. And I'm pretty sure we're not going to look, is that if people want to find porn on the internet, I'm pretty sure they already found it. And I'm guessing that it's not at a kiosk and that homeless people, you know what I'm thinking a homeless person could do is start an email, make a phone call, have a phone number, and maybe even get a damn job.
Yeah,
where they couldn't before. Now they can fill an application. So to you, New York Post, I crap on you, and this is just another example of a dying publication that feels threatened by the internet.
Ooh, exactly.
Yeah. To you, exactly. Son. All right, this is C3 Podcast. I am the professor, a.k.a. Vincent Vincenzo. And I'm here with my buddy Joe Riolano, that freaking Puerto Rican. Joe, tell them how they can follow you on Twitter and anything else you want to plug real quick.
You can find me on Twitter at Joe Riolano. And like I said, be sure to check out our website, CarolinaCatChronicles.com, for all the hottest takes regarding the Carolina Panthers and a lot of opinions, fans' perspectives, all kinds of stuff on there, Panthers related. And thank you for watching the show, guys. That's something we don't say enough.
That's right. We got a great audience. A lot of people taking part in it. Fantastic. Okay, so you can find our work at CarolinaCatChronicles.com. All the Panther news from the fan perspective. We're here every Tuesday night, and even though we're doing this show Flintstone style, I'll be back and with the bells and whistles next week. We got a special guest, Bryce Johnston from Over the Cap, coming to talk about how the Fletcher Cox deal and some of these mega deals at defensive tackle are going to influence how we handle KK Short. A lot of good work he's doing on how to better holistically look at contracts, and we'll get into that next week. So Tuesday night, 10 p.m., #C3. Follow me at cat_chronicles. If you're watching on YouTube, subscribe, give us a share, go to iTunes, give us a rating, download the podcast, and we're getting back into our normal flow. Go Panthers.